So in this video, I'm going to go over how to find the roots, solutions, or zeros. So what are we doing? When we're finding roots, solutions, or zeros, we're figuring out what are the values of x when we set our equations equal to 0. So our answers are going to be in x equals form. So we're going to have x equals some number as our final answer. So how do we do this? So first you start off by setting your equation equal to 0. Then you're going to factor, and you're going to set the factors equal to 0, and then you're going to solve for x. So here we want to find the solutions of x squared minus 2x minus 15. So step 1 tells me to set my equation equal to 0. So I say x squared minus 2x minus 15 equals 0. Step 2 tells me to factor. So I need to factor this trinomial right here. It doesn't have a GCF, so I'm going to look at A, B, and C. A is 1 in this case, so I just have to look at the value of C. C equals negative 15. So in order to multiply and get negative 15, I know that I need a positive factor and a negative factor. So if I list out the factors of 15, I make my bigger factor negative, because see here, 2 is negative and 2 is the value of b, so I know that my bigger factor has to be negative. So when I add these, 1 and negative 15 gives me negative 14, 3 and negative 5 gives me negative 2, so that is the correct combination of factors. So I have x plus 3 and x minus 5 equals 0. So now we need to use something called the zero product property. So what this tells me is that I have x plus 3 times x minus 5 equals 0. Two things multiply to equal 0. So that means that either one of them must equal 0. And that's an interesting property to think about. So I set these two mini equations equal to 0. And what I do is I need to solve them for x. So here I'm adding 3. So to solve for x, I'm going to subtract 3, which gives me x equals negative 3. That's my first solution. Here I have x minus 5, so I'm going to add 5 to both sides, and that gives me x equals 5, which is my second solution. So now I want to find the zeros of 2x squared minus 7x minus 4. So as usual, I'm going to set it equal to 0, and then I'm going to factor my expression. So when I try to factor this, there's no GCF, but a does not equal 1. So I'm going to multiply a times c. So I multiply 2 times negative 4, which equals negative 8. And I need two factors of negative 8 that are going to add to negative 7. Since 8 is negative, I know that I need a positive and a negative factor. And since b is negative, I know that my bigger factor is going to be negative. So I have 1 and 8 and 2 and 4 to make my bigger factor negative. And look at which combination is correct. So the correct combination is 1 and negative 8. And so I'm going to expand out my trinomial. I'm going to write this as 2x squared plus 1x minus 8x minus 4 equals 0. So I group my terms together. So 2x squared and 1x, the GCF is 1x. And then if I divide that out, that leaves me with 2x plus 1. Here, since the 8 is negative, I'm going to go ahead and factor out that negative. The GCF of 8 and 4 is 4. So I have minus 4, and when I divide that out, I get 2x plus 1. That equals 0. So now when I write this as a product of factors, this is 2x plus 1 times x minus 4 equals 0. So now I set each factor equal to 0. X minus 4 equals 0, and 2x plus 1 equals 0. So to solve 2x plus 1, I'm going to first subtract 1 from both sides. That gives me 2x equals negative 1. And then I divide by 2. So I get x equals negative 1/2. Here I have x minus 4 equals 0, so I add 4 to both sides. And I get x equals 4. And those are my two solutions. Now let's find the zeros of 9x squared minus 64. So to find the zeros, remember I set my expression equal to 0, and then I have to factor this left side. So notice that this is the difference of two squares. Remember that product property we had, a squared minus b squared equals a plus b times a minus b? I can use that in this problem because this 9x squared is 3x squared, 64 is 8 squared. So I can write this as 3x plus 8 times 3x minus 8. So I can set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. So what I do here is first I subtract 8, and I get 3x equals negative 8, and then I divide by 3, so x equals negative 8 over 3. Here I can add 8 to both sides. I get 3x equals 8, and then divide by 3, and that gives me x equals 8 over 3.